What is shaking? Episode 115, Golden Mike Live. Annabelle is smiling. It's already a good day. Annabelle Beckwith, this is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about not only starting your business with a great vision, but if you want to execute, if you truly want to go to the long term with your business, if you want to be sustainable, you need one thing: leadership. Am I right, Annabelle?
You are absolutely right. Yep. I was slightly worried at what you might say there. It's like, you need something. I thought, oh no, that's not what I sent in my notes. But we're good. We're good. Yeah, leadership.
No, I won't deviate from the notes too much today, Annabelle. This is gonna be a really great show. Annabelle and I literally met 5 seconds ago. We met 5 seconds ago, so all of this is going to be organic. We're going to get to know each other right now, and I'm like really looking forward to this type of format with the show where we're going in cold. So this is the deal. We got Annabelle Beckwith. I'm talking about over 20 years of helping entrepreneurs. Annabelle Beckwith, yes, the same one who's the head of development and public affairs at the Royal Scottish Academy of Music and Drama. Holy cow. That's a mouthful. That was
a long time ago. That was a long time ago, but that was a fascinating job. You know, on one hand, it was massively challenging, and I certainly developed some leadership skills there and made so many mistakes, it's not even funny. On the other hand, it was absolutely fantastic because it was like Glee or Fame or something. People were singing in the corridors and dancing about. So it was a great place to work. It really was.
That is the first thing that I thought about was people dancing and singing in the halls like Footloose and like they're protesting with snaps and stuff like that.
Right. Well, it wasn't quite as cheesy, it wasn't quite as coordinated as that, but I do remember going into the cafe bar and one of the members of staff had a small baby that they brought in and had left with some of the students while they went to teach a class, and the students had gathered round and were singing Brahms' Lullaby to this baby in the cradle, and I thought, that's not something you see in every workplace, is it? So there were some lovely moments.
Absolutely amazing. And today we're going to be talking about honing those leadership skills for the entrepreneurial space. And I'm really curious about this because as an entrepreneur myself, who actually left higher education 3 years ago, you go from a place where on the regular, leadership was talked about. Leadership was important. I mean, in terms of navigating, securing funding, getting people to move, that was important in higher education. And then when you go into the entrepreneur space, sometimes you're like more vision oriented because you're sometimes working with yourself for smaller teams, especially when you're starting up. I can't wait to hear what you're about to talk about with us in terms of using those skills in our own business practices. Before we go there, Annabelle, you're going to learn about me. I might as well throw it out there. And for those of you who haven't met me, including Samira, hi, Samira. It's great to see you. For those of you who haven't met me, my name is Marc Cordons. I'm positive psychology coach, formerly in higher education for 14 or 15 years, like Annabelle was a while ago. And in terms of what I do, I'm the founder of the Make Money Coaching Program, which does look at leadership, as well as the Chief Disruptive Officer of the Joy Revolution, which looks at social justice and happiness and how we can create sustainable movements using leadership and joy. More importantly, on a regular basis as a coach, I get to ask myself and other people on a daily basis 2 things. Number 1, how happy are you feeling today? And then the second thing is, how much are you living in your full purpose today? So Annabelle Beckwith, I have to start off with this question. How happy are you today? And how much are you living in your full purpose over there?
Well, do you know what? These are, they're really good questions that everybody should indeed ask themselves every day. I think I was just writing them down thinking, I am very happy. For many reasons, but also because I am living in my purpose. It's one of those things that, did I start 20 years ago thinking, I know what I want to be doing is working with entrepreneurs who are growing and scaling their businesses? No, because I didn't even know that was a thing. So it's something that's It's in more recent years, out of the last 20, like the last 15 years of working in corporate, the last 5 years of thinking, there's things that happen in the corporate environment that are really, really useful to the scaling entrepreneur and indeed to the startup. There's a load of rubbish that we want to leave behind. We don't want to bring it all with us. But this is the thing, and it's a source of constant joy to me to be working with a business owner, with an entrepreneur, and because I've done it for so long, there's things that they're going, I'm stuck, I don't know. And it's okay. It's okay. Everybody gets stuck at that point. And here are some of the thinking processes to go through to work your way out of that. And it's almost like you open the window, the light comes, and it's like, oh my goodness, it wasn't that difficult. No, it wasn't that difficult. You just didn't know where to look. And having people coming back to me and saying, you made a real difference there is a constant source of joy. So yes, I am happy. Yes, I'm living my purpose. Do I get extra brownie points for ticking both boxes?
You get extra brownie points for not calling me out on asking you a double-barreled question. Usually higher education folks will call me out on that being a weak question.
Which one do you want me to answer first? But actually, to be fair, I think in the way I understood the question, one kind of leads to the other. I think if you get to a point as in life generally where you're not living your purpose, where you're frustrated, where you feel confined, if that's in a business environment, if it's a relationship, if it's socially or whatever, then that causes unhappiness to a lesser or greater degree. So to me, the two questions were related.
I'm so happy that you see that they're not mutually exclusive. And I don't know if you've seen this, but I've definitely seen, and I would overlay this with my own story as well. I've definitely seen myself, go into the, follow my heart, live in full purpose. Becoming a coach is going to make me happy and starting my business. And then I get so caught up in the business and the, just trying to get things done and the tasks and the planning of things that I forget that it's making me happy. I get so caught up in the bull crap of it all, and so I'm really happy that we're starting off our way of getting to know each other by saying, they're not mutually exclusive. They're not mutually exclusive at all. Now, I want to throw this out. What is your story in terms of getting to where you are today? I mean, I was looking here, head of development and public affairs a couple years ago at a music school, Then you talked about doing some corporate. Now you've been working with budding entrepreneurs, businesses that are scaling. Let's go back to little Annabelle, Baby Belle. Annabelle. And did you grow up in London?
Baby Belle, right? Sorry.
Did you grow up in London?
No, I didn't. I grew up in Wiltshire, which is the southwest of England, and I live in the southwest of Scotland now. But my accent is pretty neutral.
Okay.
It's more of a London accent.
Okay. Yeah. It says London time here, so I just figured it would be London. That's my American ignorance. Yeah. So Baby Belle running around southern England. What was it that you were thinking about when you were originally going onto this journey of sort of thinking about what you wanted to do, how you wanted to serve?
I'll tell you, I actually didn't really have much of a clue. Certainly when I was in my teens, I didn't, because I think when you're young, when I was in my teens, I wanted to be an actress. And then I sort of applied to drama school, didn't get it. I found myself working at a music and drama academy in due course. Yeah. But I started to find that the drama side came across in an ability to communicate with groups of people. So I found myself in my first job, which was nothing to do with learning and development and training and coaching. I found myself being asked to train people who were more senior on how to give presentations. And I thought, well, that's interesting. I got married, I moved to Scotland, I couldn't find a job, I set up in PR because I was thinking nobody will give me a job, I've got to do something, let me see now. So there wasn't a master game plan. I wish I could say I had a clear vision, I knew, I didn't have a clue, I just didn't have a clue. I was, when I first started at the Music and Drama Academy, and there's been a whole load of PR, business development, marketing type things before that, I was initially looking at generating income streams for that college that weren't, obviously it gets government funding, but setting up an agency, a music agency for the students, running drama-based workshops for the corporate sector. And that was where I thought, oh, look at this. There are really transferable skills from this environment to the business environment. Got promoted to like head of development and public affairs, based marketing and fundraising, basically. But that was what it said on the card. My predecessor had come up with that title. I wouldn't have. During that point, I started working with a colleague. We decided, actually, we're going to leave and we're going to set up a learning and development training and coaching company where we specialize in using the performing arts as a catalyst for learning. So not just role plays and so on, there's actually an awful lot that you can do with it. So still slightly cluelessly stumbling about, but realizing that I think we might be onto something here. And it really was a case, if I'm to use a metaphor, it really was a case of setting forward, thinking this looks like an all right direction to be moving in, and taking the first step of very, very imperfect action. And then the path became clear as time went on, if that made sense. Then got to work via an agency, I guess, doing associate work for large corporates. Then started to think, oh, I could do this myself. So getting corporate clients myself. And then after a while, thinking, there's so much useful stuff that people are doing, that business leaders are doing, that within the corporate sector, that entrepreneurs aren't, because they don't know. And it's one of those things that, working with entrepreneurs sometimes, and it's same as anybody, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And so you don't know what you don't know until it comes around the corner and smacks you in the face, by which point you're kind of, that's not great. So by putting together a bit of a format and taking people through it, it's like, okay, this is what's involved in your strategy. And as you just said there, Mark, when you started out, it was like, there's the thing that you love to do, and suddenly you get caught up in all the businessy stuff. There's the finance, there's the accounting, there's the marketing. It's like, no, wait, I wanted to be a coach, or I wanted to be a ... So there's overseeing all that side of things, which can be quite overwhelming. And as a business owner grows their business, perhaps taking on staff or maybe outsourcing or whatever, there's more stuff that happens. And the thing I found is, if you this sounds so simple, but I actually believe it to be the case because it's borne out in the people that I've been working with, just break it down into bits and pick off a little bit at a time. If you look at the whole entity, it's like, oh my goodness, I'm in danger of being overwhelmed by this Frankenstein's monster I've created, and now I am a slave to it as my business rather than the other way round. And it's okay. It's okay. Just stop for a second and think about it in a slightly more structured way. So that was a really short question you asked, and I went rambling on for some. I think the material point is, some people know exactly where they want to be and how they want to serve. And for me, it has genuinely been a case of walking purposefully in a direction, thinking, I think I can do this, or this is something I feel compelled to do. This is something I know I can do. I'm just going to move in this direction and see what happens. And the path has unfolded over the last 20 odd years in this direction.
So that's the perfect place for us to get to know each other. And I also think, in terms of getting into some of the points about leadership and scaling up, is number one, the idea of vision. A lot of people will, a lot of people will continue to work on their vision as if they've got a marble slab and they've got a little tiny pick, and they've been picking at it in very fine details, and then don't move on it or show it. And now you're talking about walking purposefully. You're like, I've got a general idea of where I want to go with my vision. At what point, in terms of you working with solopreneurs, I mean, a lot of solopreneurs will work on their vision so much that they just get stuck in their head, and they never act on it. They never take the leap. What is your ideas on just vision in general? Like, does it need to be crystal clear, or do most folks just need the general area where they want to work?
In my view, it's, if you have a sense of clarity around your purpose and direction, I am moving in this direction. Because let's face it, we move in a particular direction, and somebody might say, right, I want to be a millionaire in 5 years. Well, fine, that's absolutely fine. But on you go. Because we, over here in the UK, we can't predict what the weather's going to do on Friday. So why we're trying to put ourselves 10 years into the future to say exactly what it's going to look like, who knows? The political landscape, there's lots of external factors that can impact on the practical outcomes of your vision. But it is really important to say, this is where I aim to be. This is who I aim to serve. This is the difference. This is aspirational stuff. This is the difference I intend to make in the world as a statement of purpose. And it does two things. I think it acts as a touch.
Oh, no. What just happened? We need to know what's going on with the clarity of purpose. Okay, so those of you who are tuning in, stand by. This has been a really good one right off the bat. We've got Annabelle Beckwith with us. She's been working in leadership for over 20 years, corporate, higher education. We're starting off, y'all, with talking about the idea of vision, And a lot of people who start out with their visions oftentimes will work on their visions so much that they think it needs to be crystal clear, absolutely set in stone. And Annabelle was just talking about this illusion that if we go and try to predict what we're going to do 25, 30 years from now, it's like putting ourselves into a rigid dogma and having to stick with it for the sake of sticking with it. So for those of you who are into the vision piece, Annabelle has been talking about, and I'm going to bring her back on so she can give us the points. She's been talking about this idea that, just start moving in the right direction, not having a rigid structure that's going to box you in for 25 years. Right, Annabelle? I held the fort while you were gone.
Oh, right. Yeah, I thought, I've fallen. Has he cut me off? Was it going that badly? No.
It was. We got Jorge from Puerto Rico who's screaming, reconnect. Jorge, it's great to see you today. So it did cut out right there when you're about to give your first big point on purpose. So
yeah, be clear about the direction in which you're traveling and what your own personal purpose is. I genuinely believe sometimes if we go, right, it's got to look exactly like this. It's got to look exactly like this.
Yeah.
We limit ourselves because actually we might say, I'm going for that, but actually the vista in front of us, there could be so many more opportunities that will still fit our purpose, that will still make us happy. I also think that if we're too closely defined, it is, I've got to have a villa in Spain, I've got to be living in such and such a street, my kids have got to go to that school. It's almost as if, and anything else that deviates from that is a failure. And that's not a good thing. The opening chat that we had, Mark, about are you happy and are you fulfilling your purpose? I think those are really important themes for this, is to be clear about the direction in which you're going and an idea of what you want to achieve. Now, as a metaphor for this, and this just came to mind while you cut me off there, was just making a point there, my daughter is 20 and she's been to college here in Scotland, and she's always wanted to go travelling, and she's in New Zealand at the moment. Now, what happened there is, like, literally since she was 13, she thought, I want to go to Australia and New Zealand. And she left in November. Now, they had a couple of weeks planned out in Bali, bit of a holiday, and they booked everything in advance. Then they went to Australia, and it was slightly less certain about Australia. They might have stayed there for longer, but there was a heat wave. Australia's more expensive than she had reckoned for. So they've gone on to New Zealand. They weren't sure where they were going in New Zealand, but they got there. They stayed with an old school friend of mine for a few days and then thought, right, okay, we're going to, head to Wellington because there's jobs there. And she's got a job now and is looking for other things. But for me, that's a metaphor. It's like the shorter term thing about let's go to Bali, let's book all our accommodation. We know pretty much what we're going to do there. The further away it gets, we're less certain. We know we're going to New Zealand, but we don't know, I'm going to stay here, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Now, other people might want to leave with that clarity and think, let me get a job lined up, but it's not necessary. It's not necessary. Mm-hmm. So I think there's also, in terms of personal leadership, in terms of an individual's character, what is your own approach to risk? what are you the sort of person who can live with ambiguity and go, I'm walking in that direction, if this then that, if that then the other, but I will trust myself to get myself there because I have the inner resolve to do that. And if the path doesn't follow exactly the predicted order that I would have hoped, that's okay, because I'll work around it, because I have a sense of purpose and direction and a reasonable idea of where I'm going. And the closer you get to that particular thing, the more clearly you see it. You might get to a point and think, do you know what? I thought that I wanted to. So a few years ago, I was working with through an agency, and it's run by 3 or 4 guys, and they've got some big clients. I thought, oh, I want to be like them. Look, hello. And then as I looked a little bit more closely at them, I saw how difficult they're, like how stressed they were working with these clients, and I thought, yeah, I don't think I want all of that either. I think I'll take a different path. So as you get closer to something, then it's like, yes, that is what I've always wanted, or oh, didn't realize it was going to be like that. There has to be an element of flexibility in there, as long as you are true to your purpose.
I love that you bring that up, because that idea of living in a sort of rigid structure that we create for ourselves is absolutely limiting. And I'm sure that you've heard that idea of having a growth mindset. And a growth mindset is just the first step of having that mindset, is understanding that things do break down. The environment gets unpredictable, and we have to create feedback loops in our mind for improvement, for assessing, for saying, you know what, I walked in that direction. I just need to make a couple of degrees change, because that direction isn't truly the direction. It's in the general area, but I'm just going to make a little change. And I'm pretty sure that it's this area that I want to move to, not 45 degrees away or 20 degrees away. And the rigid mindset can oftentimes, or the fixed mindset can oftentimes be so limiting that if you don't get that one thing that you thought you needed to get, let's go and use an example of your students, right? For example, I needed to get this one Broadway play in New York at this particular season. And if I don't get it, then everything I've done up to that point is an absolute failure. And I've also, to translate it over to the business side, I've seen, again, I want to put it on myself, but then also a couple other folks that I've seen in the entrepreneurial space say, you know what, if I don't make this amount by this time doing this with this type of person, it's over. It's a failure. I'm a sham. I got to cash it in, and then I got to go back and work for the man or something like that. It's all or nothing.
Yeah. I think you're right, and that can be limiting. And another thing, actually, I think quite often as entrepreneurs and so on, it's comparison is the thief of joy, a wise person once said. And that's it. We tend to look at other people and think, oh, they've got it all together, or they've got the book launch, or they're wheeling in these corporate clients, and they're speaking on stage. I must be a failure. I will hang my head in shame, and you don't actually know what the backstory is. And having worked with many business owners and entrepreneurs, it's like, that's obviously enough, not the full story. It's like coming into your house, a guest has arrived unexpectedly and you've shoved everything behind the sofa in the living room. It's like, this is what people see, and then behind the closed doors, under the stairs in the cupboard or behind the sofa, there's all this stuff that needs to be addressed. So that's
I've heard of that as I've heard of that as the duckling on a pond syndrome, where you look at everyone is looking at the ducks on top of the pond, and it's just so pristine, and it's so easy, and it's so graceful. And you go underneath the pond, and you see all the legs flailing around like crazy to just stay afloat.
Exactly that. That's precisely it. That's precisely it.
It's so cool.
I mean, there's a flip side. Like going back to what you were saying about how people can get caught up in, got to have such a clearly defined vision and so on. Otherwise, I'm not going to set off unless the entire journey is mapped out for me. And it is that thing about the journey of 1,000 miles, beginning with the first step. The flip side of that is for it not just to stay as a fluffy thing that's just a wish, that's a daydream. One day I'll be speaking on that I'll be in the Broadway play, but it is thinking about, right, okay, what do I need to do? How do I break it down into a strategy, into a plan of, here are some of the things, some of the stepping stones that I must have in place if I'm to have a chance of getting there. So it's very much having that clear intention, that vision, that sense of purpose. And actually, as you start to bring on board people, or even if you're just outsourcing, sharing your vision with them to say, look, this is the sense of purpose with which we're all moving forward, is massively important, so people feel a connection with you and your business. It's not just a functional and transactional thing. They're joining a tribe. They're joining you and your group. And that psychologically has a massive impact as well. So the vision is important for that, but also, as I say, that it does translate down into, okay, well, there's a vision. This is what we need to do now. Here's an action plan. This is what I'm going to do tomorrow in order to start along that way. There's breaking it down into those action steps.
Well, I love the fact that you're breaking it down into action steps, and then you're also bringing in the idea of vision, because as you move from solopreneur to entrepreneur, which I think is a huge step, right? And you don't have to start as a solopreneur, but you start going from the drama of all these head games, being rigid in your mindset and letting go of your mindset and going into a growth mindset, to actually now working with people, right? And so when we're talking about scaling, I think a lot of people are ready to put some systems in place, but where does the vision come in now? Do we hold on to the vision? Do we, and then share out the scaling? What does that look like?
I think it's important to share what your future vision is and what your current aspiration is. So vision and mission statements. Now, just as a quick aside, sometimes I've been working with people and they're writing down these things. Oh, is that a vision statement? I think that's a mission, or is it a goal, or perhaps it's like there are too many words in the English language. Is it a KPI? The point is that I know, it's like, oh, for goodness sake, and you start arguing about what it is as opposed to actually the material point is, do we have a clear statement of intent and purpose and our aspiration as to how we want to make a difference to people's lives, to the world, or whatever? And do we have a clear iteration of, this is what we do now, that goes beyond the functional? And it's really important. In the corporate environment, they will always share a vision and mission statement. But what's perhaps more important than that is to make it real, to make sure that your strategy, your actual action plan, your game plan of getting to that future state, the two align. It's not like when you say that our vision and mission is to do blah, 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 but actually what we seem to be doing is that mustn't happen. But also to make sure that, your processes and systems actually not only support your people to deliver on that strategy, which takes you to your vision, but they also support the type of behaviors that will contribute to the culture that takes you towards your vision. So it's massively important that people understand what that vision and that purpose is. And actually, even if you look at the hiring process, ideally, you're looking for people who, I always say, right, you're looking for three things: CBA, capability for the job that you're hiring them to do; belief systems, are they aligned? Do they believe in your value set as a business, as an individual entrepreneur, and in your vision? And aptitude. So that's like, do they have the capability and the mindset and the mental agility, as it were, to be able to grow with your business and adapt to changes and so on. So it's actually really important from the beginning, as soon as you start to hire people, because you want people who have the same vision as you.
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't going to mention this, but you did say before you said, is there anything that's off-piste? And I said, no. So a long time ago, and this was like about 15 years ago, I had a business partner who ended up stealing loads of money from me and disappearing. So never a great thing to happen. But in retrospect, our visions for the business that we were building were very different. I wanted to grow the business into something that was bigger, that was longer term, that was product based rather than service based. So I had a clear idea of that. And this other person, it was a lifestyle business. She just wanted to be taking money out of the business all the time. Now, my bad, I didn't actually we didn't communicate that. We thought, yeah, we want to start a company. We're friends. Never a good idea. That's another subject. But the key thing there was my vision of where we really wanted to go, and her vision of what it was going to do were very, very different. So sharing that and being really clear, if you're not clear about it yourself, you're not going to be able to explain it to anybody else. So having that clear in your own mind and communicating that, telling that to other people so that they can buy into the same thing is actually massively important in terms of building the culture of your organization. And as they say, culture will eat strategy for breakfast. It's important. It just does. Sorry to say. So it actually, whilst it might sound like, do I need one? I'll just, you do need to have some clear iteration of purpose, because it's going to come back in many different ways as you start to build out your business.
Yeah, and it does seem like with shared vision, there's like a couple things that I see going on here. I think number one is, okay, in your initial stages of finding out what your initial purpose is, or you got to find out a certain direction. But then when other people are getting on board, in order for them to truly buy in, you got to be able to clearly communicate that, or they're going to make assumptions, they're going to fill in the gaps. Yeah, and that's where some frustration can build up.
Most definitely.
So, at first I was like, oh, I need to be crystal clear in terms of the direction. No, I don't. Maybe as long as I'm walking in that direction, but I would be telling folks with the capacity and the aptitude, look, my belief system is that we can improvise. I learned from Annabelle Beckwith, the art of improvisation from performing arts. We need to be able to do it without a rigid strategic plan. If they understand that, they can still buy into that and say, okay, then I can be in this very loosey-goosey thing, and that's my value system too. I love that kind of freedom and the autonomy to kind of build up in this chaos. Is that kind of what you're talking about? Be able to be very clear about the way that you deliver, or get crystal clear on the direction and get a little bit more fixed?
Do you know what? There is a bit of a balance, because you do need to be moving purposefully forward, and there is an extent to which, we can improvise. But let's imagine also that you need to get processes and systems in place, because that's the thing that makes your business scalable and replicable. So it's not like you're in the sales team. It's a free for all. Go out and do what you want. There's going to be parameters. And somebody's going out and like lying and cheating and swindling people to get the sale. No, that's not obviously a ridiculous example, but here are the parameters, and with your processes and systems and your ways of doing things, and things that build your brand rather than damaging it. It's like here's the framework here. Within there, bring your personality to work, do things. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. There's flexibility here for that improvisation piece, but you're still marshalling people along. This is the purpose and my direction. We don't go off and do anything that's too avant-garde, because this is what we're doing. But there might be circumstances within a business, like finances, for example, or HR or something like that, legal, where actually there's no kind of just do what you want, interprets like that's the law. Yeah. If you do that, we're going to jail. There are certain instances where it's like, this is where there's flexibility. This is our direction, and how you choose to get there. There's an element of you just going with the flow and doing it. And in some instances, it's like, right, we want to get there, but actually we need to pay our tax. We need to do, there's certain things that there is we need to do. It's a statement of the office.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it is like, from a leadership perspective, this is where it's like the thing that I'm looking at. And I was going to use the metaphor of a lighthouse, but of course a lighthouse is something that you avoid. But there's this shining light in the distance, and you're thinking, that's what we're working towards. And in some instances, we can veer this way and that as we go there. And in some instances, actually, we can't. We really have to do it like this, because there's a legal requirement. Or actually, I've done this now for 10 years. And I know that the best system for this is this. If you've got some ideas, fine, we can try them out. But broadly speaking, these are the steps that we
That's so good, Annabelle. Absolutely, that's so good. And I mean, I guess the performing arts just keeps coming up with you, and the metaphor of a stage is coming up, right? Like, here are the parameters of the stage. A stage might be smaller depending on the certain parameters, like legal or finances, and we're restricted in certain ways. But upon that stage, the dimensions, feel free to dance and create and play on that. That's where we want your best self to come out. So it does make absolute sense that the people coming into your company need to buy into that vision, to know that they're capable, they have the aptitude, and the belief system are clear enough so that everyone knows what the stage looks like. Not everyone's interpreting the different sizes. People are falling off here, and then other people are way out in a different district. It makes a lot of sense. We have been in flow. We're 45 minutes in here, and we've been talking about leadership. I want to get to this idea of good leadership. What is good leadership in your mind? Because I've seen, there are leaders that can get people to do things. What does good leadership look like?
So in a business sense, there's actually not even in a business sense. I think there's a number of metaphors that we can look to. I'm a bit of a history geek. I haven't bored you with any of that so far, but I might now. But actually, you only have to look back in history and antiquity to think there were leaders who commanded armies in like medieval Europe or ancient Rome or somewhere, who commanded armies, and soldiers would throw themselves into hopeless situations because they trusted and believed in that leader. And I'm always curious as now, I wonder why that was. And there's something about hierarchy or feudal system or whatever, but this leadership, this I've noticed in 20 years of working around the world in different leadership contexts, it's not just about stuff that you know and things that you do. It is absolutely about who you are. So what is your leadership character? Are you somebody that somebody respects and wants to follow? There's going to be leaders who people will go and they'll follow because it says manager on the door, or there's some hierarchical impetus to do that. There's going to be other people, and these I believe are the good leaders, who are able to influence other people, and they might not be in a hierarchical position of leadership. We can see this everywhere, can't we? In our own workplaces, even, let's face it, in the playground at school, there's going to be some kids who others want to play with and some that others don't, whatever. And that comes down to an ability to work with people, to inspire people to take action. And whilst that might sound like a bit of a hopeless case, oh, well, they're really charismatic, I'm about as charismatic as a bagel, that's me lost then. It's like, no, there are specific skills that you can learn in terms of communication and being able to understand people. I know it sounds a bit woo-woo, but it's not. There's certain techniques and stuff. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And you think, oh, I see. And that's how I can influence that group of people or that person. Now, the counter side to that is being really, really sure of your own values, because if you're influencing somebody to do something that is not in their interest, then that's manipulation, and that's not a good thing. And you will get away with that once, and then the second time people will go, oh yeah, here she comes again. So there is that thing about remaining true to your own values. So good leadership is where the leader is able to inspire and communicate and motivate the people to do things, but also allowing them, and this is those kind of parameters that we were talking about earlier, allowing them scope for autonomy. Daniel Pink talks about autonomy, mastery, and purpose. I actually despair when I see people saying, entrepreneurs who are building their businesses, and I see this online, and I used to rant back, and now I just think, oh good luck, pal. Because people are saying, do you know that way where you think, no, I'm banging my head against a brick wall here. People will say, most people just want to be told what to do. And when people say that for me is like, and there walketh a bad leader. because most people don't just want to be told what to do. And actually, people who say that, leaders who say that, what they actually mean is most people want to be told what to do. Not me, of course. I'm one of the superior beings doing the and the danger there is if your leadership style is purely instructional and you are telling people what to do, you are not allowing them the autonomy. There is no freedom of expression. There is no creativity. There is no recourse to discover, to learn, to do new things. And these are all very, very deep-seated, basic psychological human needs. The need to grow and develop is inherently part of who we are as a species. So if, as a leader, you are curtailing that, you will frustrate your team. They will get sick of you and they will leave. And unfortunately, the people who will stay are the ones who don't care, who are quite happy to be told what to do. But then what you find as a leader is that you'll start saying nobody has any initiative, nobody will do anything.
Yeah.
Well, no, because you trained them to do what they're told. So that is like the good leader is one who can motivate and influence and who understands their people and the business parameters and has a clear sense of purpose and can lead them through that. But also who provides not just the money, the stuff that we need to actually function in terms of life and society, but actually provides them with the autonomy to be able to grow and contribute to the business and to be an active member of that tribe, which is like the business tribe, as it were. The bad leader will try and command and control. And curtail people's abilities to act autonomously and so on. And that will actually, you're not leading at that point, you're pushing people, and it's exhausting and you will burn out.
Yeah, I think that, I'm thinking about a book that is really resonating with me right now, Power versus Force, right? In which they create they distinguish between sort of, in a similar way that power is along the lines of empowering a person using internal motivation, right?
Yeah.
Internal motivation. And oftentimes with internal motivation, there's the feeling of choice that someone has within a framework.
Yeah.
Well,
definitely.
This is the framework to work in, but what's, within that framework, what are the choices that you still have versus forces? Well, you should probably do it this way because this is the way we've always been doing it, and I'm gonna punish you if you don't do it that way. Versus that idea of force, and you're getting, and then what I love is that idea that then the manager, the leader will go and say, what the F is wrong with all y'all? None of you are inspired, none of you are blah 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 blah. And at this point, the leader has lost trust with folks because they've been pushing an agenda for a while and not thinking about people's internal motivation. It seems
that's exactly it.
It seems simple at first, but also at the same time, we as individuals get caught up in our own day-to-day, and we just want to get things done and get back to our families. And then it's really about playing well and thinking about other people throughout this whole thing.
It is. And I think, do you know what? That also, one of the biggest lessons I think I've learned over the last 20 odd years is to, can we just treat each other, whether in business, can we treat each other with compassion for the human condition? Because we are all of the same species. We will all do stupid things. We will all make mistakes. We will all make poor decisions. We will all argue our cause because we are defending it against some kind of something. We will all do irrational things. And sometimes, sometimes there's stuff going on and we need to pick it apart. But rather than reacting, right, you're fired, it's that thing about, right, rather than reacting, to take a moment to think, oh, I wonder why. What lies behind that? What was the thinking that led to that business decision? What was the thought process that led to that communication? Pick it apart, because quite often there's something in that it's like, oh, I see. Something had happened in the home that morning and you were off kilter. There's any number of things that might, or you made that business decision because actually you hadn't realised that our competitor you weren't in receipt of all. There's always more to things than meets the eye. But you're right. We get caught up in so much stuff And I think therein lies the challenge, because as leaders, it's nonsense, frankly. And it's easy to overthink things and then start to believe what we think. So this is massively complicated. Nobody's ever solved it before. Well, so they haven't. So if we approach it with a fresh mindset and we use something different, we bring some new people in to sit around the table to discuss the issues, maybe we'll get a different outcome. Let's not keep doing the same thing. I remember actually facilitating a meeting where this particular group of leaders had been at loggerheads, and this had been going on it was like Groundhog Day. They had this meeting every month, and it was just, and so I was brought in to say something, and eventually I said, what is your vested interest in the continued failure of this meeting? No, we want to solve it. And I said, but you're all senior people here. You all have the capacity to figure this out. Why do you want it to keep failing? And it was a genuine question, because I was thinking, these are smart guys and women, what are they doing? But they got into this overthink where they were almost putting barriers in their own way to keep them in that position of inertia. And as soon as somebody goes in and goes, well, you obviously want it to fail, otherwise you'd make it succeed. No, we don't. Well, yeah. And then there's a different approach. Right, okay, maybe that's the point. What is the impact of this? It's a different conversation.
Annabelle, I have to know what their answers were. How did they answer that? Because that is one disruptive question right there.
There was a slightly shocked silence, and I thought, I'll get my coat and I probably won't bother to send you an invoice. And then somebody said, well, no, then there was the defense mode, because people, if you're confronted with something, you tend to go into fight, flight, or freeze. Yep. So first was freeze. It was like deer in the headlights.
Yep.
And then there was a, well, no, you're wrong because, and I just said, you're all intelligent people. I'm just saying this as an outside perspective. That's my shield to hide behind sometimes. You're all really intelligent people in charge of significant budgets. I don't believe that you haven't got the wherewithal to fix it. At which point there was yeah, we are all intelligent people. Yeah, we can fix it. And then actually the issue wasn't something that could be resolved overnight, clearly, because otherwise it would have been. But it brought about a totally different avenue in the conversation, which they then continued in subsequent months, and the project got back on track. So yes, sometimes you do need to throw those things in there to challenge people to stop overthinking and stop believing their own nonsense, basically.
Well, I think the reason why I threw disruptive that's a disruptive question was that a question like that has the power to either get you beheaded, right? Because they can totally blame you. You don't get us. You don't get what we do. We wouldn't have brought you in here, blah, 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 blah. Or it has the power to get people to be like, oh, yeah. You know what, y'all? We've been stressed out. We've been on each other's. We've been nipping at each other. There's something deeper here. And we've been hiding behind these meetings this whole time, and I think that's another thing that we can throw out as well, is this idea of, in living your fullest purpose. Let's bring it full circle, right? In living your fullest purpose, and living in joy, and scaling your business, and wanting to do the right things, and wanting to be a good leader. There's still this idea of your fullest self and having compassion for others, in which if you're hiding, you can go by the formula of good leadership and say, hey, I'm empowering everybody. And where you're actually really just hiding, and you're not sharing the vision. You're not being clear with everybody. So getting back to that, the initial points about you're a person walking in a direction right now and figuring it out for yourself. But then when you get to actually sharing that, that's one of the biggest things. Y'all, we've completely gone off vision. And we're spending a lot of money on consultants right now. We're nipping at each other. We're talking behind each other's backs. We're going to bed pissed off. We're staying up late at night, and we're not joyful about our business anymore. And I'm hiding because of the fact that I, as a leader, am not being correct about what our vision was in the first place. Let's get back to the basics and move forward, because I can see a lot of good leaders wanting to empower folks, But as they
Yeah.
say, I want to empower folks, they're hiding behind needing to just step up sometimes and say, look, I hold myself accountable, but I need to be clear on the vision. And it's not this.
That's it. And sometimes that takes courage. And actually, one of the things is I was sitting there, I was actually getting annoyed that this conversation was going on. And I thought, actually, my purpose is not to come in and be nice to everybody. My purpose is to help. So it's like, and I will stand or fall by that. So if they fire me and go like, get out, then that's the consequence of it. And then I probably shouldn't have continued to work with them anyway. But it's like, I'm going to take a risk here because my purpose is to do this. My vision is to help businesses that are scaling, that are growing, that are stuck, and help them to move forward there. I am failing in my purpose if I don't say this thing. And if it blows up in my face, it blows up in my face. But at the time at which I'm saying it, I absolutely believe it to be A, true, and B, the right thing to say at the time. So put it out there. So it does come, and that's again by having a clear personal purpose. There's going to be situations where you think, okay, what do I do here? Where that will come back, and that will be a bit of a guiding light to you and indeed your team, because you're role modeling that purpose and vision for them. So it becomes an active thing,
love it.
not just a vision board thing on the wall.
I love it, because then to go back to your compassion piece, you're using fierce compassion in integrity with the vision and leadership versus a manipulation tool. Like you were talking about earlier, you're still using it from a power and good leadership perspective. Homie, it's at the hour right now, and I want to get into these core skills that people may forget when going into leadership. I also want to be respectful of everybody's time, and so yara-journeys.com. Will we be able to get some core skills over there at yara-journeys.com?
You will at yara-journeys.com in a few weeks' time, because my website, and I know when I was speaking to you first, I said, I'll be ready by the time of the podcast, and it's not. One or two technical glitches in the background, but that is the website. I'm also on LinkedIn. I'll be delighted to connect with anybody there. And there will be a variety of resources and so on my website.
I absolutely love it. This has been amazing. It's been delightful. We 10 seconds we went on and we just freestyled, and I've loved every minute of this. I love the conversation. For those of you watching the replay or have been watching live, Yara-Journeys, be on the lookout for it. As soon as the website comes up, I'm going to resend this email. I'm going to send this out to my list so that everyone can go to your website. They can look at the skills. Beckwith, I want to have you back on the show. Can we do that?
Oh, that would be fab. No, I've really enjoyed it, actually. I've not done many podcasts, so I'm still a bit of a podcast newbie, but I've really enjoyed it.
You've got so many lives going across your Facebook that I figured I figured you've gone pro already. So I would love to have you back. Anytime you want to come back, let me know, because it's been fascinating, and leaders, coaches, entrepreneurs, those of you who are communicating a vision, those of you who are even leading movements, watch this again and look at the little pieces that Annabelle has been talking about to really inspire people, bring hope to people, and bring about the change that you wanted in your own life. And remember, when we're seeking after that purpose, there was a core emotional feeling, not just money and all that stuff. That money was supposed to bring you an emotional feeling, and not to forget about that along the way. Annabelle, this is the last piece. This is why it's called the Golden Mic. So I know that it is the evening over there. And so on this beautiful UK evening with unpredictable weather on Friday, a golden mic is coming down. A golden mic is
dark. It's a bit foggy.
I love it. So I want to throw it out that a golden mic is now coming down from your ceiling. And the thing and the power of this golden mic is that for a few minutes, it amplifies to the entire world. It translates into every language, and everyone across the spectrum gets to listen to what it is that you want to convey to the world. So Annabelle, when I flip the golden mic, the world is going to be listening. What is the message you want us to know? Annabelle Beckwith, your golden mic is live now.
Leadership is not about hierarchy within an organization. Leadership is about personal leadership. It's about your own values and how they direct you towards your purpose. Leadership isn't just about stuff that you know and things that you do. It's about who you are, and fundamentally knowing and understanding who you are. If you don't know yourself, you're not going to be able to lead other people. And also, when challenges come, we all default to a specific self, to our real self. So we really need to know who that is. Don't compare yourselves to other leaders, because you're not other leaders. There are things that you can do. There's stuff that you need to know, but fundamentally it is about who you are. And that's it.
Annabelle Beckwith, I want you to hold that golden mic that you just spoke into. Hold it in front of you. Now I want you to smash it down, because you just crushed that. You just crushed that.
Imaginary mic.
Exactly. Absolutely loved it. For those of you who are watching the replay, share this one out. This one was a good one. Annabelle, I can't wait to have you back on again. This has been Golden Mike.
Back. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Let's keep in touch. For those of you watching the Golden Mike, it's been episode 115. I got one final question. Actually, Annabelle and I have one final question for you. It goes back to the very beginning of this episode. If you're feeling good and you're living in your full purpose, what is your responsibility to change the world for the better? Annabelle Beckwith, Marc Cordons, it's been the Golden Mike. See you soon. Take care.
Thank you very much.
Annabelle!